Wherever you're watching from tonight, pull your blanket close, because I'm about to tell you what happened the day my own son-in-law told me I was a terrible mother. My name is Eleanor May Thompson, born and raised in the quiet hills of Charlottesville, Virginia. If you saw me sitting on my porch in my knitted sweater, you'd think I was just another small-town grandmother who baked cookies and minded her roses. And maybe I was. Until the night everything changed. Until the night a storm rolled over my family, breaking what I had spent a lifetime trying to hold together. Until I discovered something about my son-in-law. Something his new wife didn't know. Something his first wife had nearly died keeping quiet. And on one cold December evening, I realized that sometimes the strongest alliances are born out of shared pain. Cloud with rain, the night he told me I wasn't enough. It was a Tuesday. A quiet one. The kind where the house smells like apple cinnamon and the neighborhood dogs bark at passing school buses. My daughter Lily had been married for 2 years to a man named Brian Carter. A man who always smiled too wide and talked too smooth. At first, I thought he was just nervous around me. I was wrong. That evening, they invited me for dinner. I brought a pot of homemade chili and a tin of cornbread, because that's what mothers do. We show up. We bring warmth. We love, even when it's not asked for. When I walked in, the air felt sharp, like walking into a room where someone had just finished arguing. But I swallowed the tension and smiled anyway. "Hello, you two," I said, setting the chili on the counter. Lily smiled softly, but her eyes were dim. Exhausted. Brian didn't even turn his head. He just muttered, "You're late." I'm 10 minutes early," I said gently. He scoffed. "You never show up when we need you. You're unreliable, Eleanor. Honestly, you weren't even a good mother to Lily. She deserves better than your kind of family." The room went silent. My heart slammed inside my chest like it was trying to escape. Lily's fork clattered onto the table. "Brian," she whispered, horrified. But Brian didn't stop. He leaned forward, his eyes cold and sharp. "You raised her with no discipline, no standards. That's why she's so useless around the house now. And don't look at me like that. Everyone knows it. You failed as a mother, Eleanor." I felt the world tilt. I had been insulted. Yes. Ignored. Yes. Disrespected. Many times. But never in my life had someone looked me in the eye and told me I had failed my child. My mouth went dry. My fingers numbed. My heart cracked. And my daughter just sat there, frozen in fear. Not defending me. Not denying him. Not even breathing. It wasn't her fault. Fear is a cage. And Brian was the one holding the key. I picked up my purse quietly and headed for the door. But before I could leave, Brian said one more thing that burned itself into my bones forever. "If you ever want to be part of this family, you'll learn to act like a proper mother. Or stay out of our lives." Driving home with tears I didn't know I still had. I drove home slowly, vision blurring with every mile. The road lights streaked like falling stars. I had always believed that a mother is allowed to make mistakes, as long as she loves her children with everything she has. But that night, Brian made me question whether all those years of warm meals, late-night talks, hand-holding, scraped-knee bandaging, and birthday surprises meant nothing. By the time I reached my house, my chest hurt. My breath shook. I felt ancient. I sat in the driveway for a long time, listening to the hum of the engine and the quiet whisper of winter approaching. And then, there was a light. On my porch's wing, a woman sat there. A woman I recognized immediately, even though it had been years. Maria, Brian's ex-wife. The woman before my daughter. She stood up slowly, her coat dusted with frost, her eyes glistening with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. "Eleanor," she whispered. I'm sorry to come like this. I didn't know where else to go." I rushed to her. "Maria? What on earth?" She broke down. Right there. Right on my porch. Right into my arms. I didn't want to bother you, she cried, but I thought you should know what he did to me. And what he's doing to Lily. My heart stalled. Fear surged into my stomach. What do you mean? I asked, guiding her inside. She hesitated. And then she told me the truth. The secrets he left behind. Maria explained everything. The manipulation. The financial control. The threats. The hidden accounts. The lies he told everyone about her. The emotional terror he used to keep her silent. She showed me the documents. The proof. The text messages. The bank transfers. She showed me the reason she left him. And why she had never breathed a word to anyone. And then she told me something that froze my blood. Something that made me sit up straighter. Something that made my tears dry into anger. He thinks he owns the house Lily lives in. But he doesn't. He never did. I stared at her. And Maria, trembling, exhausted, handed me an envelope. Inside was the original deed. Signed. Notarized. And still legally in her name. Maria said softly, I never transferred it to him. He lied to everyone. And now, he's controlling your daughter inside a house he doesn't even legally have a claim to. My hands shook. The world spun. And then a fire, slow, steady, powerful, lit inside me. I took her hands and said, Maria, I think it's time he learns who he's really dealing with. Her voice cracked. So what do we do? I looked at the deed again. And I smiled. We form an alliance. Because the next thing we did changed everything. And Brian never saw it coming. The deed lay between us on my kitchen table like a sleeping snake. Quiet, still, but deadly if you knew how to handle it. Maria sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a mug of steaming chamomile tea. She looked smaller somehow, folded into herself like a woman who'd lived too many years in the shadow of someone else's storm. I had seen women like her before. Women who were strong but tired. Brave but wounded. And for the first time in my 67 years, I realized something. I had been raising daughters my whole life. But tonight, God had placed another one in front of me. The truth that broke the silence. Eleanor, Maria whispered, her voice trembling. I never wanted to involve anyone else. I kept quiet because he made me believe no one would take my side. Her fingers tightened on her mug. He told me if I ever spoke up, he would ruin my life. Take everything I had. Destroy me financially. And for a long time, I believed him. I felt my jaw clench. Because suddenly, the puzzle pieces began fitting together. Lily's growing fear. The way she flinched at loud sounds. How she apologized for things that weren't her fault. How she checked her phone every 10 minutes. How her smile had slowly faded without me noticing. Brian wasn't just arrogant. He wasn't just controlling. He was dangerous. Maria, I said quietly, how long were you married to him? She swallowed. 7 years. And how long did the abuse last? Her eyes lifted to mine. Haunted, hollow, exhausted. All 7. The light over my kitchen table flickered as if responding to the darkness that had entered the room. I took a deep breath and said the words that had been burning inside me. He won't do it again. Not to you. Not to Lily. Not to anyone. She blinked, confused. Eleanor, what are you saying? I slid the deed toward her. I'm saying we're going to use the one thing he loves more than power. Money, she asked. No, I said. Her eyebrows lifted. Control. Morning came with resolve. The next morning, I woke before the sun. My house felt different. Not lighter, not darker. Just awake. I made pancakes for Maria, and for a moment, she smiled. A small, fragile smile. Like someone remembering what warmth felt like. Eleanor, she said softly as she ate. Thank you. I don't think you know what you're doing for me. Maria, I chuckled. You're thanking me now, but wait until we're knee-deep in whatever trouble we're about to cause. For the first time, she laughed. A real laugh. It filled the kitchen with a sound I hadn't heard since my Lily was young and carefree. When breakfast was done, I called Lily. Mom, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Are you okay? Are you okay? I asked gently. Silence. Then, can we talk later? She murmured. Brian doesn't like me being on the phone too much. My heart squeezed. I'll come by around 5, I said. We'll sit on the porch swing. Another pause. The kind that tells you someone is trapped but doesn't know how to say it. Okay, she said. As soon as I hung up, Maria looked at me. You're worried about her, aren't you? I'm terrified, I admitted. The plan we didn't know we needed. Around noon, Maria and I sat together drafting a plan. Not a scheme, not revenge. Just a way to protect my daughter and expose the truth. First, I said, tapping the deed, we confirm the property records. I already did, Maria said quietly. The house is still legally mine. Good. Then step 2. Lily needs to know she has somewhere safe to go if things get worse. Maria nodded. What about step 3? I inhaled sharply. Step 3 is the one he'll never see coming. The visit that revealed everything. At 5 o'clock sharp, I drove to Lily's house. Only, the house that had once felt warm and full of possibility now felt cold. The curtains were drawn. The lawn looked unkept. There were scuff marks on the front door, as if someone had kicked it shut too hard. My stomach twisted. I knocked. Lily opened the door only halfway. Her face was pale. Her eyes rimmed red. Mom, she whispered. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her quickly, as if afraid someone might hear. What happened? I asked, my heart pounding. She hesitated, then she lifted her sleeve. A bruise. A deep, angry bruise on her arm. My knees nearly buckled. Lily, who did this? I whispered. She looked away. Her voice cracked. He didn't mean to. It was my fault. I made him angry. I dropped a plate. He was stressed. Lily. I held her face in my hands. Nothing, absolutely nothing, makes this your fault. Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. She had learned how to hold them in. Mom, she whispered shakily, I don't know how to leave. You don't have to, I said gently. She frowned. What? You don't have to know how to leave, I said. You just need to know that when the time comes, you will not be alone. As she looked at me, the porch light flickered on. A warm glow fell over her face. For the first time, I saw just how exhausted my daughter truly was. And then, the door behind her flung open. Brian stepped onto the porch. His voice sliced through the air. What is she doing here? Lily flinched. I stood tall. I came to talk to my daughter, I said calmly. Brian smirked. You mean the daughter you failed to raise properly? You're not welcome here, Eleanor. Go home. I felt my jaw tighten. But before I could respond, Maria's voice echoed from the sidewalk. Funny. Because technically, this is my home. Brian's face turned white. He spun around so fast I thought he might lose his balance. Wah, what are you doing here? He stammered. Maria stepped forward, pulling the deed from her bag, holding it up, letting the porch light reflect off the embossed seal. Remember this, she said, her voice steady. The deed you said you transferred? The house you pretend you own. Brian's mouth fell open. Lily gasped. I folded my arms. And for the first time, I watched a man who had built his power on fear finally taste fear himself. Because what happened next didn't just expose him, it destroyed everything he built. And it was only the beginning of our alliance. Brian stood there on the porch, stunned, his face draining of color like someone had pulled the life out of him with a string. For a moment, the world went quiet. Not a car. Not a bird. Not a breeze. Just the four of us. Me. My daughter Lily. Maria, his ex-wife holding the deed like a sword. And Brian, finally stripped of that smug, untouchable arrogance. He stepped forward, his voice cracking between disbelief and rising panic. That's not real. Maria, put that away. You're embarrassing yourself. Maria didn't flinch. This is the certified copy you never expected to see again, she said. County records confirm it. The house belongs to me. And legally, it always has. His jaw clenched. His fist tightened. His nostrils flared. I'd seen this expression before. The moment right before he lashed out. I stepped closer to Lily. Close enough that he'd have to go through me first. You two planned this? Brian snapped, pointing at me. You think you can just show up and... I didn't plan a damn thing, I cut in, my voice colder than I expected. But I'm done pretending you're a good man. Something flickered in Lily's eyes. A spark I hadn't seen in months. Maybe years. Brian turned back to Maria, his voice lowering into that dangerous, manipulative tone. Why do this now? You're just bitter. You want to ruin my life. Maria took a deep breath. No, she said softly. I want to stop you from ruining anyone else's. Brian stepped back into the house, motioning sharply for Lily. Inside. Now. Lily froze. She didn't move. She didn't speak. And the fear in her eyes. God, I will never forget the fear. She's not going anywhere, I said firmly. He spun around. You don't tell my wife what to do. She's my daughter, I reminded him. And I will not let you hurt her again. He scoffed. You can't prove anything. Maria exhaled through her nose, then reached into her purse again. I can, she said. Brian's head whipped around. What else are you pulling out of that bag? He spat. Maria held up her phone. I kept everything, Brian. Every threatening message. Every voicemail. Every time you told me I'd starve if I didn't obey. Every time you dragged me across a room and said nobody would believe me. Brian lunged toward her. But I blocked him. You touch her, I warned quietly, and I will call the police so fast your head will spin. His rage cracked. It wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was silent. Sharp. Like a blade. But he knew he was cornered. For the first time. Brian didn't know what to do. Never meant to make. Lily stepped forward, her voice trembling. Brian, she whispered, I can't do this anymore. His face snapped toward her. What did you say? She swallowed hard. I've been lying for months. To Mom. To everyone. About the bruises. The yelling. The things you say when no one's around. His eyes widened. Lily, stop. Why? She whispered. So I can keep pretending everything's fine while you break me piece by piece like you did to Maria? I wanted to step in, to hold her hand, but Lily wasn't done. I'm leaving, she whispered. And for once, you can't stop me. A crack of something, fear maybe, flashed across Brian's face. He reached for her arm. But she stepped back. No, she said firmly. Not this time. Maria moved to her side. And then, unexpectedly, Lily grabbed Maria's hand. Not mine. Not Brian's. Maria. The ex-wife he swore was crazy, dramatic, unstable. The woman who had walked through fire long before Lily ever smelled smoke. And at that moment, something clicked into place. An alliance was forming. Not out of revenge, but out of survival. And Brian saw it. He saw the power shift. And he panicked. You think you're all innocent, he snapped, losing control. You think you're victims? You're nothing without me. None of you. You'll come crawling back when you realize you can't survive without my money. Maria raised the deed. You mean my money, she said calmly. He froze. And here's the worst part, Brian, Maria continued. You used my credit, my assets, my income because you had none of your own. This house, the cars, the business you brag about owning. She stepped closer. I funded it. I built it. I paid for it. Brian looked like he had been slapped. You're lying, he whispered. Maria showed him paperwork from her bag. Receipts, transfers, emails, loan documents. His lies untangled in real time, strand by strand, like a sweater unraveling. He staggered back, gripping the railing. You can't do this, he whispered. You can't take everything. Maria looked him dead in the eyes. I'm not taking everything, she said softly. I'm taking back what was always mine. His breathing hitched. And Lily, she continued, is taking back her life. I stepped forward. And I added, am taking back my daughter. The wind picked up slightly, blowing cold air across the porch. And Brian did the one thing I didn't expect. He broke. His pride shattered. His voice cracked. His shoulders slumped. Because for the first time, he wasn't the strongest person in the room. Lily, he whispered, don't leave, please. We can fix this. She shook her head. No, Brian. You can fix yourself. But you cannot fix me. She walked down the steps. Maria followed. I stayed behind for one final moment. You did this, he whispered at me. No, I said. You did. He gritted his teeth. You'll regret this. I met his eyes. No, I said calmly. You will. Then I turned and walked down the porch steps, joining the two women he had underestimated most. 3 women. Different ages, different stories, walking shoulder to shoulder in the fading light of a suburban Virginia evening. As we reached my car, Lily exhaled shakily. Mom, I don't know what comes next. I placed a hand on her back. Freedom, I said softly. Freedom always comes next. She leaned into me. Maria placed a gentle hand on her arm. And for the first time since the day she married him, Lily smiled. Small, tired, but real. It was the smile of a woman who finally knew she was safe. Because leaving was only the beginning. What we uncovered next would expose the truth Brian spent years hiding. And it would change all our lives forever. When we left Brian standing on that porch, he looked like a man whose entire world had tilted beneath him. But if he thought the worst was over, he had no idea what was coming next. 4 days, Lily stayed with me. She slept in her old room, the one with faded posters, the quilt her grandmother made, the soft lemon scent of my laundry detergent, something she said she hadn't been able to smell without crying. Maria came by often. She'd bring tea, documents, advice, strength. The ex-wife alliance, as we jokingly called it, was building something bigger than any of us expected. Support, truth, power. And deep inside, I felt something blooming I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The night Lily finally broke down. 3 nights after leaving Brian, Lily walked into the living room while Maria and I were sorting through paperwork. Her eyes were swollen. Her hands shook. Mom, she said quietly, is it normal to feel guilty even after escaping someone who hurt you? Maria looked up immediately. It is, she answered softly. Because you were trained to feel responsible for his emotions. That doesn't go away overnight. Lily nodded slowly, tears spilling over. I moved toward her, pulling her into my arms. You are not responsible for his reactions, I whispered. Only your healing. For the first time in years, Lily didn't pull away. She sobbed into my shoulder until her knees almost buckled. And in that moment I knew. This wasn't just a marriage ending. This was her rebirth. The hidden folder that changed everything. The next morning, Maria arrived with something unexpected. A small, old metal lockbox. "I found this in Brian's storage unit," she said. "I forgot I even had the key." Lily and I exchanged glances. Maria placed the box on the table and popped it open. What we found inside twisted my stomach. 1. Tax forms from years Brian claimed to be unemployed, but here he had income records. 2. A prepaid phone with dozens of messages from multiple women. 3. Signed loan applications using Lily's name. Lily gasped. "He used my social security number." Her voice trembled. "Oh my God, he took out credit cards in my name?" Maria nodded grimly. "He did this to me too." I gripped the edge of the table. This wasn't arrogance. This wasn't temper. This was criminal. "He's been doing this for years," Maria said. "And now we have proof." Lily sank into a chair, her face pale. "Mom, I thought he only yelled. I thought it was just emotional. I didn't know he was a con man," Maria finished gently. "Yes. He fooled everyone, including the courts. And just when I thought the shock couldn't get worse, Maria lifted a final envelope. "This," she whispered, "is the reason I left him." She slid it to Lily. Inside was a photo. A picture of Brian with another woman, holding her pregnant belly. Lily covered her mouth. I closed my eyes, rage and grief swirling like a storm. Maria added quietly, "She thought he was divorced. Just like I once did." Lily stared at the photo, her voice barely audible. "He was building a whole other family?" Maria nodded. "And draining your accounts to fund it." Lily burst into tears again. But this time, not a single tear was for him. The visit to the lawyer. We took everything, every document, every photo, every recording, to a lawyer who specialized in financial abuse. Her office smelled of fresh coffee and determination. She flipped through the folder slowly, her eyes hardening. "This," she said firmly, "is enough to file charges. Identity theft, fraud, emotional abuse, unauthorized credit use, and property misrepresentation." Lily inhaled shakily. "And the house," she whispered. The lawyer looked at Maria. "You own it fully. He has zero legal claim." Maria let out a breath she'd been holding for years. "And Lily?" I asked. The lawyer turned to her. "You'll be protected. We'll freeze the accounts he used. File a restraining order. And..." She gave Lily a sympathetic look. "You'll be free, honey." Maria placed a hand on my daughter's. "You're stronger than you know." Lily wiped her eyes. "Let's do it," she said. And that was the moment her healing became a battle plan. The confrontation that broke the last chain. That evening, Brian showed up at my house. We heard his car speed into the driveway. His fists pounded the door. "Lily, open the door." We didn't move. Maria stood beside Lily. I stood in front of both of them. He kept pounding. "You think you're safe? You think you can hide? You can't do this to me." We didn't answer. Minutes later, red and blue lights flashed through the curtains. The police stepped up to Brian. "Sir, we have a report of harassment and a pending protective order." "Step away from the door." "What? They're lying." "That's my wife." "Sir, step away now." He froze. His voice crumbled. "Lily, please," he pleaded. "Let's talk." But Lily didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply watched through the curtains as the officers led him down the steps. Her chin lifted slightly. Her eyes didn't waver. And that was the moment I saw it. My daughter was no longer afraid. She was becoming herself again. The police told him he couldn't return without violating the temporary protection order. When they finally drove off, Lily collapsed into a chair. "I didn't shake," she whispered. Maria smiled. That's because you're not the same woman he tried to break. The day we took back her life. The next few days were full of action. We froze every account. We blocked him legally. We contacted credit bureaus. We filed additional charges. We made copies of everything. Every piece of paper was a step toward freedom. Every call was a brick removed from the cage Brian built around her. During one long afternoon of sorting files, Lily suddenly said, "I want to join Maria's case. I want to stand with her." Maria's eyes welled. "You don't have to." "I want to," Lily said. "He manipulated both of us. We deserve justice. Together." That word, together, felt like sunrise breaking through a storm. The ex-wife alliance wasn't just a clever phrase anymore. It was real. It was powerful. It was unstoppable. And Brian. He was about to face consequences he'd avoided for years. But then, something even bigger came to light. 3 days later, the lawyer called us urgently. When we arrived, she looked deeply serious. "There's something you all need to know," she said. She turned her screen toward us. "County property records. Loan records. Marriage licenses." Buried deep in the database was a document we never expected. Brian was already married. Before Maria. Before Lily. To a woman in another state. A marriage he had never dissolved. Lily gasped. "That means..." "Yes," the lawyer said. "He committed bigamy. Multiple felonies. On top of fraud." My heart thundered. Maria leaned back, stunned. Lily covered her mouth. "He's going to jail," she whispered. The lawyer nodded. "Very likely." And then, something unbelievable happened. Lily didn't smile. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. Instead, she whispered. "He wanted to tell me I wasn't enough. He wanted to tell Mom she was a failure. And all along, he was the one living a lie." Maria nodded slowly. "He hurt everyone he touched. Now he'll answer for all of it." I exhaled, a long, slow breath I'd been holding for years. Justice wasn't just coming. It was already unfolding. Because the courtroom wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The day Brian faced the consequences. The real victory came from what we built afterward. If you've been following this journey from the beginning, listening to the heartbreak, the betrayal, the secrets, the truth, then you'll understand when I say, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in quietly, with a stack of evidence and a judge who has no patience for liars. The courthouse stood tall that morning, sunlight bouncing off its white stone columns. Maria, Lily, and I walked up the steps together. 3 women who had once been broken by the same man, now standing in perfect formation. The ex-wife alliance. No one could break us now. Lily clutched her folder of documents. Maria held her binder, full of timelines and bank statements. I carried my small purse with the deed inside, the one I'd given Maria as a Christmas gift. Each of us held a piece of the story that would bring him to his knees. The courtroom door that felt like a final battle. When we entered the courtroom, Brian was already there. But he did not look like the man who once barked orders, slammed doors, and strutted around like the world owed him royalty. No. His shoulders sagged. His suit didn't fit. His eyes darted nervously. This was a man who'd run out of excuses. He stiffened when he saw us, especially Maria. Then he froze completely when he saw Lily. But when his gaze landed on me, I swear I saw fear. Real fear. Because he knew now. The woman he mocked, insulted, and dismissed was the one who brought the truth into the light. Testimony that cut through his lies like a knife. The judge listened carefully. First, Maria spoke. "My marriage ended because of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and lies. I believed every word he said. But he used my name, my life, to fund an entire second world." Her voice didn't shake once. Then it was Lily's turn. She stood slowly, taking a deep breath. For years, I thought I failed as a wife. I thought I wasn't loving enough, patient enough, beautiful enough. But I was living with a pretender. He didn't just hurt me. He stole from me. My credit, my money, my sense of self. Her hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. Today, I'm taking it back. The judge nodded sympathetically. Finally, it was my turn. I wasn't expecting to speak. But the judge asked, Mrs. Evans, you discovered much of the evidence, correct? I stood, smoothing my skirt. Yes, Your Honor. And why did you step in to help both women? I glanced at Lily, my daughter. Then at Maria, a woman who had once carried the same wounds. Because silence is how abusers survive, I said. And because when a mother sees her child drowning, she doesn't ask who pushed them in. She jumps. A soft murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you, Mrs. Evans. I sat down, my heart pounding. Brian's defense. Cracks in a shattered mask. Then it was Brian's turn. He stood up, attempted a smile, and began. Your Honor, these women, they're exaggerating. They're emotional. There. The judge held up a hand. Stop. Brian blinked. You will address only facts, the judge said sharply. Not character attacks. For the first time in his life, Brian had no power. He stumbled through half-truths and excuses. It was stress. I misunderstood the paperwork. It's not what it looks like. But every excuse fell flat. Because for every lie, Maria had proof. For every denial, Lily had documentation. And for every manipulation, I had a timeline. His web of deceit collapsed on the courtroom floor. When he finally sat down, perspiration beading at his temples, he looked defeated. Truly defeated. And it wasn't anger on Lily's face. Or Maria's. Or even mine. It was something deeper. Release. The sentence that echoed through the room. The judge reviewed all the documents, his pen tapping lightly against his notebook. When he finally looked up, the room fell silent. Mr. Turner, he began. You committed multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, bigamy, and financial manipulation. The evidence is overwhelming. Brian swallowed hard. You exploited 2 women who trusted you. And you left a trail of deception across multiple counties. Therefore, this court sentences you to. The room held its breath. 3 years in state custody, mandatory financial restitution, and a permanent protective order granted to both Mrs. Turner and Ms. Evans. Lily gasped softly. Maria closed her eyes, relief washing over her like a wave. I pressed a hand to my chest. 3 years. 3 whole years. It wasn't just a punishment. It was acknowledgement. Validation. Justice. Brian's head dropped into his hands. And for the first time, the man who hurt so many was powerless. After the storm, a life rebuilt. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different. Lighter. Cleaner. We stood on the steps, 3 women who had survived the same storm. Maria pulled us into a hug. To starting over, she said. To healing, Lily whispered. I added softly. And to never letting another woman fight alone. We all nodded. The ex-wife alliance wasn't ending here. It was beginning. That afternoon, we sat in my living room, tea in hand, sunlight streaming through the curtains. Lily still had bruised pieces inside her. Maria still carried the ghosts of her past. And I still felt the echo of every cruel word Brian ever said. But together, we were healing. Together, we were whole. Together, we were unstoppable. Christmas morning. A symbol of new beginnings. A few weeks later, on Christmas morning, the 3 of us gathered again. No big gifts. No pressure. Just warmth. Maria handed Lily a small, ribbon-wrapped box. Inside was a key. Lily looked confused. Maria smiled. It's the spare key to your house, she said quietly. The house he thought he owned. The house he tried to take from both of us. Tears filled Lily's eyes. Maria. I can't. Yes, you can. It's time for you to have something that's truly yours. Lily hugged her tightly. Then she turned to me. Mom, thank you. If you hadn't stepped in, if you hadn't believed me, I don't know where I'd be. I cupped her face. You'd still be brave, I said. Because you always were. If you're listening to this story, maybe you've been underestimated too. Maybe someone told you that you were weak, unimportant, invisible. But hear me. No one gets to define you. No one gets to break you. And no one gets the final word on your story. Except you. Sometimes life puts you in battles you didn't choose. Sometimes people you love become the source of your deepest wounds. But healing is your victory. Your quiet revenge. Your return to yourself. And if this story touched you, even a little, where are you watching from? And have you ever had a moment where someone underestimated you? Tell me in the comments. And before you leave, always remember, you are stronger than the people who tried to hurt you. You are worth more than the love you didn't receive. And your story isn't over. It's just getting started. If you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. It helps this little community grow, and it lets me keep bringing you stories that heal, inspire, and empower. Thank you for listening. And thank you for being here. This was her story from Virginia. And maybe, just maybe, a little piece of yours too.